Welcome to the sunrise safari, and we see the pale pastel colors of dawn starting to break. My name is Brent Smith. I have a Bryan on camera. We have James Henry and Dangerous Dave on the other vehicle. At the moment, we are sitting very close to where the wild dogs disappeared last night. So just listening for any sounds of those animals moving through the dawn. James is on his way to check up on the last position of Tingana. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we find some sign of those wild dogs. Now, it was a very bright night last night. The moon was illuminating the savannah, and that means the wild dogs could have moved for quite a long time. So hopefully they didn't move too far, and wouldn't it be special to have them 2 days in a row? But we're going to carry on checking, see what's out and about. If we find nothing to follow up on Juma, Bryan and I will take the long road to the east and go check Cheetah Plains. There is something special about the African dawn. I don't know, I've seen lots of dawns in lots of different places, but for me the African dawn just holds something different. There's that potential for creatures, and the smells, the sounds are just a very, very special time of the day for me, personally. Aha, dog tracks. See what James is up to. James. Then we got tracks going north and south on Zoe's. I'm going to check towards Philemon's, and then if nothing, check Triple M up towards Impala. And a big thank you to all the viewers yesterday who let me know that I was incorrect with that female leopard. It was indeed not Shaluva, it was Tsakani. And I've only ever seen Tsakani once before when I was visiting a friend. With a friend who works in the West, and I went on a bumble. A bumble is a staff drive, so to speak, and we did manage to have a wonderful viewing of her. But very interesting, both her and Shaluva both have a 3-3 spot pattern. Obviously it's slightly different, but both 3-3, and I should have checked more carefully as soon as I saw 3-3, and we haven't seen Shaluva very often, so just from where it was, I assumed it might be Shaluva, but it was Tsakani. And that is even more interesting in terms of leopard movements, that she's well out of her mom's old home range, and very sad. Her mom is, well, you never know for certain, but we're pretty confident, 95% confident, that Kwatile has moved on to another plane. But very interesting, there might be pressure from another leopard that is causing her to leave her mom's old territory and move all the way up here to the north. Megan says, so excited for a new day, and staying up to 3 a.m. is worth it, whether it's for wild dogs or flowers. Well, thank you, Megan. We do appreciate your fortitude and your perseverance and joining us on the safari. Those are hyena tracks. So I don't have any more wild dog tracks. The tracks were going both directions on the road. I have the sneaky suspicion that they've jumped through into that block there. But we will be checking carefully. James is on his way to come give us a hand looking for the wild dogs. So why don't we jump across to him so he can tell you about it.
Hello everybody, good morning. Lovely to see you this morning. Hello David on camera today. My name is James. We're driving around here enthusiastically looking for tracks of Tingana, our favorite male leopard. He is now 9 years old and he had a kill around here yesterday afternoon. A male impala, which of course was caught because it is not thinking of anything other than ladies at the moment. And we're just looking around to see if he hasn't moved about in this area. Welcome to the drive. We're as live as Brent Leo Smith is on the other vehicle. So please do talk to us. Hashtag SafariLIVE or questions at WildEarth.tv if you're on the email. We're just looking for some tracks here. His kill from yesterday is gone. And so I'm just going to talk to Brent quickly. I'm going to check around Treehouse and then I'll head down Shabam. And so we'll just find if we can see tracks here. And we'll also see if we can't see some tracks at the or doggies. That's okay. In the block there where he killed. So, I mean, he could be in there, but the kill is not. So I wonder. And
of the Mashoa. Sorry guys, just on the Game Drive radio. Okay, copy, thanks Orbs. Yeah, I had in Konzo and Zoe's going north and south. I've checked Zoe's through and I'm going to check Triple M now to the west. Sorry about that, just having a morning catch up with Aubrey, who's the guide out of Juma's Gallagher camp. And he said he heard that the wild dogs might have crossed our western edge of Traverse area, so we're going to go double check on that because that is not a confirmed report. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to the Game Drive. Sorry, really busy, everyone's getting moving. I'm just listening to the different updates from the different properties. Standing by, James. Yeah, FM I did. I'm going to get hold of the guys in the west now. So apparently the wild dogs did cross. Someone saw them late last night on their way home. So I'm just going to get hold of the guys on Arathusa, see if they've got any updates. Morning, mobile stations in the west. Can I have an update for Safari and Dow, please? Sorry, just copying you 1 out of 5. just an update from our side that my last tracks were heading west towards sort of the signs from Zoe's Road. Copy, thank you very much. Okay, so the wild dogs have already gone straight through Arethusa outside of our Travis area. So we're going to turn around, bounce, and we're going to start moving towards the plains of the cheetah. While we do that, let's go see what Commander Bond is up to.
So it would seem that our friends, the doggies, have gone off to Arethusa, which is their want, of course, and luckily we too can go to Arethusa. So I think you'll find that Brent will go that way, and with any luck he'll be able to show them to you. Of course there are he's just said to me on the radio, there are about 9 people standing by to get into the sighting, so possibly not a good idea for us to go. We did have a wonderful sight of them yesterday and the day before, so I think maybe we'll give it a skip today. I don't know, Brent will make that decision. And we'll just look around here for Tingana, male leopard, and see what else we can find on the way. We have had a tremendous number of elephants in the area over the last few days, so with any luck we'll see some of them too. The flowers continue to be magnificent in their late sort of autumn blooming, so we'll have a look at some of them. And of course the most amusing thing out here at the moment is the male impala, who are rushing about, fighting with each other from very friendly bachelor herds throughout most of the year. They have turned against each other, friend against friend, brother against brother, backstabbing, horning and charging each other out of the way, because of course the females are threatening to come into estrus fairly soon, and that has driven them into a frenzy. And Brent is not going to try it with Arethusa. He's going to head across to Cheetah Plains. That's a good idea. Hello Jessica, an interesting one about leopards in the Sabi Sands. Good morning to you, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Please remember, everybody, tell us where you're from. It's so nice to know where you are from. We had somebody, Ian, yesterday getting hold of us from Gibraltar. So that's a wonderful to know that people from Gibraltar are watching us. We have Finland, we have Australia, we've got New Zealand. So Jessica, next time you get hold of us, tell us where you're from. Jessica, you want to know how many leopards call the Sabi Sands home? I did a kind of rough calculation in my head the other day, and I think it must be close to 100. And so if we take, and you can basically work it out, was it close to 100? I've now forgotten, but basically we're looking at 60. I'm only going to do it in metric measures because it's impossible for me to do it in imperial. There are 60,000 hectares here. The average female leopard territory is probably 15 square kilometers, which is 150 hectares. And so if you divide that into the area, no, that can't be right, 1,500 hectares. So if you divide that into the area, you get roughly, that's 440 territorial females in the Sabi Sands. That's possible. It's probably slightly lower than that, but I mean, it's probably somewhere around there. You probably get about a third of that males. So let's say that there are 10 territorial males around the area, so that takes us to 50, plus attendant sort of dispersal males who are not currently holding a territory, who are either too young or too old. So maybe we'll give another 10 of those, so that takes us to 60, plus the attendant cubs that some of the females will have. So if we, and this is really rough, sort of a back of a cigarette box calculation going on here. So we're up to 60, and then if we say that roughly half of the females have got an average of 2 cubs with them at the time, that's another 20, so it takes us to about 80 leopards in the Sabi Sands. So maybe minus a bit for an over-generous estimation. So let's say between 60 and 70 leopards in the Sabi Sands at the moment. How's that for a calculation, Jessica? We could, of course, go, and I will actually check for you the Panthera data exactly. They know all about which territorial ones we have. They don't always have information on the dispersal males or the dispersal females that there might be around the place, or the cubs. But we do know most of the territorial animals around the Sabi Sands. Now, of course, we're only operating on a very small piece of the Sabi Sands. 1,200 hectares here, 600 hectares off to the east on Cheetah Plains, and another 600 off to the west on Arathusa. So a total of about 2,400 hectares, which in Imperial is about 5,000 acres. A bit more, 5,200 acres. I'm just getting an update on the radio. And our signal apparently is looking good. Now we're just going to circle the block where Tingana was and see if his tracks don't pop out. Because it would be very nice to see our favorite male leopard. It's interesting how we call Karula the queen. Of course, now she might also be around here. The queen of Djuma. Karula is a 12-year-old female leopard who makes her home over here, thankfully. Fortunately, she has been spending an extended maternity leave down on Little Gowrie, which is to the south of our reserve. So I said that we could traverse 5,200 acres. That means that we will sometimes not see the animals that are here because they'll cross out of the reserve. There are many hyena tracks around here, which doesn't bode well for Tingana's kill that he left on the ground yesterday. So just a last word on the leopard numbers. Let's have a quick look at the sun there, I think. I think I spotted it. Did you spot the sun, David? A red orb? No? I'm seeing things, am I? Quite possibly. Let's go a little bit forward. Jessica, so in this area we've got, in the area that we traverse, the possibility is there that we see two territorial male leopards, Mvula, who's possibly become a dispersal male as he gets a bit older, and Tingana, who basically covers our entire traversing area. And then we see females, Karula, Shadow, possibly Tandi, possibly a few of the others from the north. I'll carry on with that now. Nizan. Morning. Oh, good morning. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good, good.
I'm very curious what you're up to.
Oh, we are now filming live. You are now an internet celebrity.
Yeah.
We are broadcasting live to the internet. You think I'm joking, don't you?
No, we don't.
We know yesterday.
We're going to use the internet.
We are absolutely broadcasting. And hoping to find a leopard with any luck.
Oh, and no luck.
No, we've been into where he had his kill yesterday.
Oh.
And it's gone.
Oh, that's
Yeah. I'm sure you view where he timis maranti. And kuma. Utajigaji.
Ja.
Man, look on the Pegaso. I'm the one in two. Enjoy it.
Bye.
Good luck.
Yes, we're sober.
Right, so those are guests from Djuma, and that's Aubrey, and he's got a tracker, of course, on the front of his vehicle, and that's William, and William will be scouring the road, while I am looking deep into your eyes. He will be scouring the road for tracks. So, I mean, the possibility is always there that we miss tracks. But if he's just come down this road, I think we'll be all right. There's the sun, David. Can you believe it? Will you win? Look at that, everybody. There is the great African sun. Well, it's the planet's sun, really. I mean, you get the same sun where you are, just at a different time of day, probably, unless you're watching somewhere on the same meridian as us. So let's just take a quick moment to inhale the atmosphere of the dawn. I'm going to keep quiet for 20 seconds, and then Kansas Twister, I will get to your question. Always the doves in the morning. Just singing the morning alive. Some white-browed scrub robins, some drongos. Way in the distance there was a fish eagle calling. Iconic call of Africa. And the air is fresh and cool and just very perfect. The temperature this time of year, I think, the best that it is at any other time of year. Right, well, let's carry on. Kansas twister, nice one from you. About whether or not I've ever seen a critter out here that shouldn't be here. Well, I mean, yes, I suppose we have seen critters out here that shouldn't be here or that don't occur here naturally. The most obvious example, of course, being a domestic dog. And they sometimes come in from the communities outside the reserve. You know, they get through the fences, stray dogs, and that can be a real problem. And then much less obvious things, plenty of exotic plants every so often will come in down the rivers, and they will then take hold in an area like this. So yes, absolutely, we do get various exotic species here. But in terms of something very large and mammalian, you know, kind of a big mammal that we shouldn't get here, well, no, we don't. Yes, every so often a domestic dog, possibly some cattle, but otherwise, no. And Jessica, just very quickly to finish your question there. So one male leopard here, large male. Yes, another one off to the east, to a Mvula. Then females, we've got Karula and Shadow in this area. And then we've got Tandi and Inkanyeni to the south. And we've got Sagani and Luba. He's got another wonderful picture of the sun to show you.
So we're about halfway between Djuma and Cheetah Plains, and we just saw that red orb rising over the eastern horizon and had to share it with you. Isn't that absolutely stunning? Now, in the early morning now, as we move towards the dry season, we're going to be getting these spectacular sunrises. And it's so clear and so perfect because of all the dust in the air. And the more dusty it is, the better the sunrise looks. It is absolutely spectacular. But so we can't move too far from here without losing signal, because we're about to delve into a deep dip. So we just wanted to share the sunrise with you. But while we continue towards Cheetah Plains, let's go back to James.
There was a quicker look at the sun there with Brent, and now you've got all the names of the leopards that we have in this area. Their family trees are also very interesting, and I'm just going to keep, while we've got nothing specific to look at, let me try and run through it, and then our resident leopard experts can tell me if I get anything wrong. And there is a question I want to ask them. So we have Karula, the queen, and we don't call Tingana the king for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think he should probably be known as the prince, because a leopard is more a prince than a king, I suppose. Magnificent fellow that he is. Anyway, Karula has produced 2 offspring that we see regularly. That would be Shadow, who's 9 years old, and her sister Tandi, we don't see regularly, but we do see her every so often. Then I don't know who their father was, but he's not around anymore. I think his name was Mafufu Nyane, which is not a very nice name. It means angry one. And then we have Inkanyeni. Now, I don't know what the parentage of Inkanyeni is, and I'm hoping to find out, because we're going to see her much more in the coming months, because she lives largely on Cheetah Plains, which is where Brent is heading now. Maybe he'll find her there. She's got 2 cubs at the moment, I'm not sure what her parentage is. That would be interesting. And then in the north, in Buffelshoek, we have Tsakani and Shiluva. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they are descendants of that golden lineage of leopards that comes from Londolozi and Mala Mala. They really have got very golden coats. And I don't know who their mother was exactly. Anyway, so there's a sort of different lineage from the Karula lineage. So that's basically what's going on with the leopards around here now. Just listening to the radio. Just listening to the radio here, sorry, just to find out what's going on with the leopards. So, Aubrey has found tracks heading south from Treehouse Dam. Anyway, we'll keep driving around here. Now, a very good question here from Siobhan, and let's get a little bit of height here. Siobhan, you've noticed that the sun is red, and the sun is red, or you're wondering if the sun's red. Look at that bird up there, Dave. It's at the top of the tree here. That's it. Right, yeah, that's the Eastern Paradise wyder, everybody. We saw him here, highly territorial bird. He was here yesterday. Oh, don't fly away. He's a very slow flyer, but he's gone. Anyway, that was the Eastern Paradise wyder. Not a very confiding fellow. A bit nervous at the camera, I think. Siobhan, you want to know if there's smoke in the air? Are there fires around? Is that why the sun is so red? No, there aren't. Yes, we do get brush fires here sometimes, especially as we head into the springtime. A lot of people outside the reserve will burn off sort of late winter grass, and then in the hopes that it'll create a flush when the moisture comes, and then we get very red sunsets. But that red sunrise that you've just seen is a result of some cloud that was on the horizon. It is a little bit hazy, so it will get quite dusty as the dry season starts to progress. And there's we haven't seen any kind of indication that there's going to be rain, so there will be quite a lot of dust in the air. If there was a bit of wind last night in the far east there, then of course there will be dust in the air, and that will turn the sun the red colour that it is now. It's not quite red, but I can't really get a spot where we can look at it properly. I'm astounded by the complete absence of any kind of mammal over here at the moment. Sorry, I am struggling a little bit with my communication with the final control person. Do you mind going with that again? A Washington comment. Clayton, you're in Washington, and you say you can rarely see the sun like that. I'm sure, yeah. The city is not really known for as being a good place to view the sunrise, or the sunset for that matter. It's a rare joy that it's not a rare joy, but it's a joy that I appreciate every single day, and that's the rising of the sun and it's going down later on in the day. Normally when we're on drive, which is just very special. So we'll do a loop around here. Brenty did come along this road initially. We're just going to quickly do a loop because he was looking for dogs, and so he would have been going at quite a speed. There we can just about see the sun, probably parked right behind this tree. There we go. There it is, everybody, behind the trunk of the brown ivory, and you can see it's already gone from red to orange, now to kind of lemony, and soon it will be that very yellow color. And I suspect it's going to be quite a hot day, which means that it'll wash out fairly soon and the sky will go fairly bleached. You can hear already the dawn chorus has quietened somewhat as the birds head out on their foraging. They're not advertising their presence anymore, but they're getting on with the business end of the day, which is, of course, to find food. And I just want to show you one other thing before we carry on. I don't think I've stopped at one of these before, and I'm not sure that they've been quite as magnificent as they have until this year. Wait one sec. Jump out the car. You're in the right area, Dave. Always good to just look around a little before you sort of squat down in the wild out here. And here we have a wild hibiscus. Can you see it, Dave?
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful flower. And I mean, it's immediately recognizable. If you happen to be from perhaps Hawaii or anywhere like that, you'll recognize these plants. And they occur in so many parts of the world. And this is the wild hibiscus of Africa. And you can, of course, confuse it for a wild cotton plant. We do get wild cotton out here, Gossypium herbaceum. I like to say the word Gossypium herbaceum in the mornings, but this is the leaf, although it has been chewed up, of the wild hibiscus. Amazing. And I don't know if you can see there. Can you see where the surface of the leaf has been eaten away?
Yeah.
That's called a leaf tear caterpillar. And the caterpillar has got into the middle of the leaf. Now, just to give you an idea of how small it must be, I'm going to turn the leaf like this and look how thin it is. It is in between the dermal layers of this leaf. So between the top and the bottom of the leaf, there is sufficient space for this caterpillar to live. And it's made those little holes that you can see there. It's left the structural material in place, and it's eaten away at the chlorophyll-rich cells. Isn't that amazing? That is the wild hibiscus. Very pretty. No sound of calling lions, no sound of many calling birds at this stage. Let's just look around here before we move. Megan, you're in Ottawa, and you want to know if we have morning glory flowers here. We do. Ipomea species, and this is exactly the kind of area that we might expect to find them. But not this morning. In fact, yesterday, I started to notice that the flowers were starting to reduce just slightly. And I think that's just because the water has seeped out of the top surface of the layer of the soil. And so there's annual plants like the morning glories, which have a very short lifespan, will start to kind of fold and disappear back into the soil. Their breeding cycle's over. They'll put their seeds into the seed bed and wait for the next rains. I must say, as I say this in the sort of as we come to the close of April, we're only halfway through April basically, the dry season, given the amount of rain that we've had, does stretch off intimidatingly far into the future. And I'm a bit nervous for what this landscape is going to look like come October or the beginning of November, unless we have some very unseasonal rains. Yeah, just already the flowers are starting to wilt slightly. The grasses are turning from that very bright verdant green to a slightly browner color, which is totally normal. But because we've had so little rain this year, the subsurface water is very low, and the water table is lower than it would be normal. Well, we're now driving into the sun. You can see the horizon has turned lovely grapefruity sort of orange. How would you describe that color, David?
Deep orange.
Deep orange. I was hoping for something slightly more philosophical, you know, arty. Okay, we're now on the southern boundary. I mentioned Little Gowrie being the place where Karula has her maternity leave. So Joanne Nkanyeni, you say, was birthed by the Beacon female. Now I think that she was also known as the Campbell Corpy's female. So she is of the line of those golden leopards I was telling you about, as far as I remember. And I think, is Tsagani not then Nkanyeni's daughter, Georgianne? Is that the case, Tsagani and Shaluva? I'm not sure about both of them or who they were born to. They're the two females that live basically in Bivels Hook. Brent had a very nice sighting of Tsagani yesterday. There we go. Right, okay. Now this is interesting. So Kwatile birthed, Kwatile, the late Kwatile, was the mother of Tsagani. She is definitely of that lineage that I was speaking about. So that she must be related to Nkanyeni, who is the mother of Shiluva. Wonderful stuff. So they're cousins, I think, up top there. And let's head across to Brent. I think he's arrived at Cheetah Plains to get an update from there. I'll move a bit faster and see what I can find in this area.
As we bathe in the beauty of the rising sun, we are moving towards some of the water holes on Cheetah Plains. We're going to start at 3 in a row pan. Now, the Birminghams have been quite scarce over the last while. No one's really sure where they are. And very exciting. We're the only car on Cheetah Plains, and no one has driven any of the roads. So we have a blank canvas of roads and tracks to discover and to check. So last week we had that male lion and lioness that we were seeing at a vast distance across the southern boundary of Cheetah Plains. Now, we assumed it was a Birmingham, but I've since found out that all 5 Birminghams were accounted for in different places. So I did a little bit more research and I got hold of one of the guys down at Malamala. And it turns out that that is called a 4-ways male. So it was actually a new line, and I'm not sure who the lioness was, and they're not sure either. They think it comes from Kruger, because all 3 sticks were accounted for in the nets. So we had a 4-ways male line and an unknown female. So the 4-ways male lines used to be further south around the Sand River. My little brother works at Sabi, and he's told me that the 4-ways males have been pushed by the, remember this correctly, Charleston male lines. And there's quite a bit of upheaval happening with their lines down in the south. Also, there's some young males about between 3 and 4 years old that originally come from up north here, called the Talamati males. They are sort of like the Birminghams were a year and a half, 2 years ago, moving around a lot, sneaking between different home ranges and territories until they get big enough to challenge. So very interesting and quite nice to be able to have a little bit of an idea about what's happening to the south of us as well. So we're about to approach 3 in a row pan. And the joy about being so close to the Kruger is you never know what's going to come out. So a very, very good morning to Andy and Julia, who are wondering, are we only allowed on Cheetah Plains on certain days, or if an animal happens to be there and we're up in Djuma, can we come down? So we can come down on any or every drive. Sometimes we don't come down because it's all happening on Djuma or Arathusa, as it has been for the last day or two. So, oh, lion stump. It looked like a male lion lying flat there, but it was a piece of wood. So we can come down here anytime. Often when we don't choose to come down here, it's just because there are no tracks that have been seen, there's nothing happening, and we decide to stay on Djuma and Arathusa. But we can come down here on any drive we would like. Now, there's lions all over, and we're part of a big open system, so it's about 8-9 million acres. But in the Sabi Sands itself, it's about 120,000 acres. And Rafi, who's in Brisbane, Australia, is wondering how many lions are there in the park in total. It's very difficult to give a definite number because of course there's prides that come in and out, etc. But it's probably in the whole of the Sabi Sands around 100 lions in total. In the north, we can count them. We have the 3 Sticks lionesses. One has 2 cubs at the moment, so that's 5. There are going to be some more cubs added shortly to them. We have the 5 Nkuhumas for the moment, so that's 10. Of the 5 Birminghams, 15. Talamatis are 5 lionesses, 20, plus 7 sub-adults now, so we're on 27, plus the 2 Salati males, 29, and let's just make sure. Now, that's sort of the more permanent residents of the northern Sabi Sands. We do get occasionally the Salalas and the Mangen prides coming up from the south, and like those that 4-ways male and an unknown lioness, and occasionally just, I've heard now from the guys who have been at Nkoro and Cheetah Plains and this area more permanently, occasionally there's 2 big male lions that come in from the Kruger. Now, I'm not going to count those as residents because they're in and out, but so 29, 30 lions, more or less resident in the northern Sabi Sands. So it's a very, very good number of lions. Now we have a trap. Now let's have a look how it looks on the camera. There we go, let's go to that one there. Now, a lovely, lovely track, and you can see the big back pad there. Now, that is the back foot of a honey badger. Now, the one thing you can get a little bit confused that I was double checking on, honey badger and porcupine tracks are very similar, but we don't have any of those sort of little stripes down over it, which would mean it was a porcupine. Now, this is quite a big honey badger by the looks of things, and hopefully it decides to show itself to us at some point this morning. I would be very, very excited. So Megan was hoping for a honey badger or porcupine. Well, Megan, we've definitely got on the sunrise safaris a far better chance of seeing a honey badger than a porcupine. All the porcupines are safely tucked up in their burrows at the moment. Now, porcupine utilize the same disused aardvark burrows as hyenas and quite a few other animals. Now, one of the interesting things is hyenas will often actually share a den with porcupines. So they can both be active in the same den site at the same time. And at home, where I live, I popped up a camera trap, and we got incredible incredible videos of a hyena and porcupine almost nose to nose, or a hyena cub and a porcupine nose to nose. It isn't uncommon. I've seen it in the Sabi Sands as well. I've seen porcupine and hyena sharing a burrow. And interesting enough, that was in the morning, but it was a very rainy morning, so the porcupine were out a little bit later than they normally are. Well, Safari Dean's asked if I've ever visited any lions called the Hollywood Pride. I've never actually heard of the Hollywood Pride. Safari Dean, you're more than welcome to let me know where they reside, but I've never actually heard of the Hollywood Pride. So please tell me where they live. Maybe I'll make a trip to Hollywood. Okay, we're about to come out onto the first of these wonderful open areas that make Cheetah Plains so spectacular. And there is a pan there, so hopefully something's visiting. Now, speaking about Hollywood Pride and Hollywood, not so long, or actually quite a long time ago, I think the late 90s, Hollywood made a movie called The Ghosts in the Darkness, which was, I say, very, very loosely based off a true story. Christopher is in Arizona, would like to know, where do those lions live? Well, Christopher, interesting enough, the lions from The Ghosts in the Darkness, the real ones, live in Chicago. And both of those man-eating lions are in the Chicago Field Museum. So if you're ever in Chicago, worthwhile going to stop by, a very wonderful museum, and you can go have a look. But for those of you who don't know the Ghosts in the Darkness story, I'll tell you the real story first. So in the colonial times, the British decided they needed a railway line that ran from the Kenyan coast, in specific from Mombasa, all the way through to the Lake Victoria, which is the largest lake in Africa. And they built this. It was called the suicide line, because so many people died in the making of it, and it was considered absolute madness to build. So between Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya, which is sort of on the highlands, and the coast, there's a beautiful, beautiful area called Tsavo. Now there's two very large national parks in that area. And when they were building this railway line, they had to cross quite a few rivers, and when they got to rivers, obviously it took a lot longer to sort of build and to cross it. We are going to run out of battery on this camera very shortly. Bryan is waving a battery at me. So how long do you think we got, Bryan?
Maybe a minute or two.
A minute or two before we disappear. I'm not going to go too in depth to this story, but I will tell you the full story shortly. But until we cut out, you're just going to have to let me know when we cut out. So they got stuck in Tsavo building a bridge across the Tsavo River, and a lot of people got killed by lions. So around 200 is the estimate, and a lot of those were workers from India that were brought out by the British colonial government to build this railway line. And the main reason that the lions in that area became man-eaters is, of course, people's fault. And we've arrived at the first open area. Hopefully, before we disappear completely, we can give you a brief view over here. So we will get back to the ghosts in the darkness shortly, but while we change batteries and get prepared, James has found a different type of cat.
Well, guess what that is, everybody? That is wonderful Tingana, found by Aubrey. Aubrey found his tracks at Treehouse Dam followed him in here. He'd obviously had a drink during the night. And he has still got his kill. We're quite a long way from where we were yesterday and this morning when we were looking for him. But he's moved the kill and he has hung it in a tree. I'm just going to wait for Aubrey to move. You can hear his car moving now. And when they've stopped, we'll move as well. But let's just see what Tingana's doing. I think he's relieving himself, having his quiet morning constitutional. And he may then go back towards the tree where the kill is. And I think that's going to be our best bet. Try and follow through there. It is thick in here. We are in jigger, which means that the noise of the vehicle traveling through the bush here can be quite loud. So I apologize to you in advance. There he is. See him there, Dave?
Yep.
Let's just wait here, and you get this wonderful picture, an impression of the male leopard in this, with a wonderful sunlight backlighting him. I said wonderful 4 times in that one sentence, everybody. If you're a young viewer, that is very poor English. There he goes. Look at his big dewlap. That's the flap of skin underneath his chin. So indicative of a big male leopard. Oh, he's a lovely fellow, that. Right, let's try and get through here without doing too much damage to the car or the bush. Oh, there's the kill, Dave. It's in the top of that tree there. You see it there? Sorry, Dave. I parked Dave in a tree there. There we go. Well done. Dave is basically sitting in the middle of a red bush willow tree as we speak. Now let's move forward, see if we can get there before Tingana climbs the tree. There he's gone to ground. I'm just going to quickly move through here so that if he does move, we have a view going into his tree. Right, watch your heads, everybody. There are no thorns here, so you can just reach up and move it out with your hands. Thank you to all of you for your kind thanks of Aubrey for finding the kill. Dave, have you got a view there? Do you want me to move forward a bit?
No,
Dave is going to show you. In Safari Dean, you obviously know that there is one already, but you're saying, tell Aubrey that there should be a road named after him. Well, of course, for those of you who don't know, Aubrey is a long-standing member of the Juma staff, and there is a road named after him, and that's where our friends the hyenas live. They live on Aubrey's Road. And just in the background here, you can hear the emerald spotted wood dove. And I'm always slightly conflicted in a situation like this. The sort of inescapable peace of the area seeps up into me while I sit here, and there is the male leopard lying there and very comfortably relaxed, but in the tree, a hapless antelope which has met its end and lying rather grimly sort of up there. Now, that is not a male impala, as we thought it was yesterday. It is a kudu cow, a young kudu cow. It's a very big kill for him to have made, actually. But I suppose the reason one feels complete peace despite the gore is that that animal is gone. There is no life in it. But there's life everywhere else around us, including in that magnificent male leopard. Isn't he great? Now he's panting like that, not because it's so hot, it's warm. It's probably sitting at around 23 degrees, 24 degrees Celsius right now, which is sort of mid-70s Fahrenheit, 75, couldn't get more mid-70s than that. Very good guess on my part. Pat myself on the back. But that is my head, yes, I can't reach my back, I'm not supple enough. But he is panting because his belly is full of kudu. Hello, Kim in New Zealand. You're our second New Zealand viewer that speaks to us. Or you can be the first if you like. We also hear quite regularly from Aaron. And Kim, I don't know which part of New Zealand you're from, but it'd be lovely to know. North Island, South Island. And you want to know, you've heard that leopards are renowned for rolling in other animals' dung. And is this true? And if so, why do they do it? Well, Kim, they do it because we think to disguise their own scent when they are hunting. They will definitely roll in buffalo dung, especially fresh buffalo dung, and I suspect it's to try and cover or mask their scent when they're on the hunt. It's a very good question. I've also seen them eating buffalo dung. They lick buffalo dung, especially if it's fresh. Nothing like some buffalo dung porridge for breakfast, David. And they do that, I suspect, because the bacteria in the dung probably helps with some form or some part of their digestion. I'm now going to attempt to take an incredible photograph, basically by putting my phone camera into the eye of these binoculars that I have, and we'll see what sort of a result we can get. David, you'll be amazed at my photographic skill. I don't think you need to show everybody. And Siobhan, you're in Calgary and are interested in the injuries that he had. Siobhan, I can't see any evidence of them. You've said, can I see any evidence of his old injuries? And I can't. I think that he's managed to recover fully from those injuries. There is a bit of a scar on his left back leg. But other than that, he seems to be fine. And the fact that he's hoisted that kill so successfully indicates that he's fully recovered, I think, from that sort of trauma that he had. We don't really know what hurt him. Maybe it was I think it was a fight with a hyena myself, because it was on his backside, so it indicates that he was running away, which of course, if you're a clever leopard, that's exactly what you will do. Right, I've got my photograph lined up. Now I just need the leopard to look here. It's quite amazing, isn't it? There's something coming through the bush. Hyena coming through the bush. See how he's flattened himself? Look how he's flattened himself to the ground. There's a hyena that smelt this thing. Did you see the hyena, Dave?
No.
It's over there. He spotted the leopard, definitely. He's, yeah, there we go. Well done. On his own. Looks like a young male. And although that leopard is faster, stronger, and infinitely kind of more equipped to fight, he is not going to risk a physical confrontation with even a smaller hyena like that, because he doesn't want to risk himself like he did that time before and get injured, because then he really does put himself at serious risk. No one will help him. Unlike that hyena, which has the clan to go back to if he gets injured, and I've seen severely injured hyenas going back to the den and spending a bit of time there recovering before they move on. Isn't that a lovely picture of him through the leaves there? The leopard is flat on the ground behind the log. I've no doubt the hyena's seen him. That's why it backed off a bit. The leopard would cover that ground between that hyena. Ooh, he's a brave fellow, this. This is fantastic. The leopard will cover that ground in less than maybe a second and a half. Because this is a young male hyena, I think the leopard is thinking twice about it. Or the leopard is standing his ground, the hyena is thinking twice. Ooh, he's now hissing. The leopard is hissing. The hyena stopped. Dave, maybe you can see the leopard's jaws going. Oh, here we go. Now, our hyena experts, have a look at that hyena. Try and tell us which one you think that is. I'm saying I think it's a male, but maybe it isn't. It just looks like a male. He knows exactly how close he can get. And he also is kind of taunting the leopard, saying, oh, come on then. You're so fast. Come get me. And then we'll see. You would never find this in opposite. You would never find the situation with a hyena lying on the ground trying to hide and avoid a confrontation with a leopard like this. Now, the hyena, of course, doesn't know at this stage where the kill is. I haven't seen him look up at the tree, but he can smell it. Ah, brilliant, thank you. And Crystal, you say that that is a male hyena called Nkombo. So I've managed to learn to identify Ribbon, the male, from the pictures that you've all sent through, so thank you for that. But Nkombo, I'm not familiar with exactly what would mark him out. So the hyena is now sort of just about underneath the tree.
So we're on the far eastern boundary. Just across the road here is the vastness of the Kruger National Park. And we're just checking carefully to see if we've got any unknown visitors that have come to Cheetah Plains. So far, no luck, but still exciting to be so close to this area. And the amazing thing is no one actually knows what's going on in there. This is one of Kruger's sort of wilderness areas. There's very few roads. There's a couple of access roads. The only people who ever really go in here are the anti-poaching guys and some scientists occasionally to do some research. So it's always exciting. The great unknown to the east. And we're lucky enough to be on the boundary of that. So sometimes the great unknown comes to visit us occasionally, and we're hoping for a bit of that this morning. So while we continue to search the great unknown, let's go back to James, who's with that magnificent animal, Tingana, who's being harassed by a hyena.
Sorry about that, everyone. I'm not sure what happened. But leopard is still there, hasn't moved. And the hyena, I can't see at the moment, but because the leopard is, you can see he's relaxed completely. He looks exactly like he did just before you left. And therefore, I think the hyena's probably moved off. And this kind of stalemate, of course, can go on for hours and hours. Very nice to hear from a new viewer all the way from Brisbane. And Ravi in Brisbane, you want to know why he's alone, why it is that he doesn't have a partner, or does he have a partner? Ravi, he doesn't have a partner, no. No leopard has a partner because they are solitary. That is how they live. It's the most effective strategy for them to remain solitary. You only will see a male leopard if he is with a female that he's about to mate with, or is indeed mating with. And sometimes you get these amazing situations where a male leopard will join up with a female and her attendant cub, normally at a kill. Normally they might share a kill, not willingly, or sort of not, they won't have killed together. But what they do is they can, sorry, there's a vehicle coming in here. So there's a bit of noise behind us. What they do is, if one of them makes a kill and the other is nearby, then there can be a bit of scavenging off one another, and then they will be seen together with a partner and often an attendant offspring. Doesn't seem to happen though, interestingly, unless there's a cub with the female. And Jody, interesting question from you, and it's a lovely one to ask of a leopard, because you say, would he eat a hyena? There's the hyena, David, right in front of us, and just over the top of my head. And Jody, you say, if he killed that hyena, would he eat it? Leopards are renowned for eating other predators and for seeing other predators as fair game. So they eat jackal quite often. They'll eat domestic dogs quite often in non-wildlife areas. They eat civets. So yes, I imagine that he probably would eat a hyena if he could kill it. And you know, he probably could kill it. But the risk of getting clamped in those very powerful jaws is such that he won't try. But certainly leopards are known for killing wild dogs and wild dog puppies. There's a wonderful shot there. You can see this hyena is hoping, oh, here comes another one. There's another one coming in. Look, there's another hyena there. Just coming through the bottom of your screen now. You see it there, Dave? Let's see who this one is now. They'll be part of the same clan. I suspect a male. And now this poor leopard. I mean, he completes the kill is totally safe where it is. And he's just got to decide whether he's prepared to make the rush up towards the kill or not. Or if he's just going to lie there. See, he doesn't feel threatened on the ground. He feels okay. I don't know why they're running off now. What else might be coming in? And now they will play the ultimate hyena game. And that is the game of waiting. So eventually what's going to happen is that kill is either going to rot and fall out of the tree, or he's going to drop bits and pieces of it out of the tree. We were chatting earlier about elephants rolling in dung and why they roll in buffalo dung. And you say if they are so good at hiding their smell, at least if it's necessary for them to hide their smell like that, because the prey animals have such a good sense of smell, why is it that they always get caught? Well, Errol, they don't. They don't always get caught at all. A leopard's success rate is probably about, I'd say, a maximum of 30%. So 3 out of 10 times they will catch when they try. 7 out of 10 times they will miss. And so it's really not, it's not at all that the prey species are, at least that the leopards are, sorry, I'm getting myself tongue-tied here. It's not at all the case that the prey species are always caught. It's very hard to be a predator out here. It's really not easy at all. Now, Christy, you asked a question that I'm afraid got lost somewhere with the game drive translation. Can you go again with that, please, Kirsten? And Christy, you're interested in who is more likely to attack in a situation like this. Chris, it would be much more likely to be the hyenas. In a situation like this, the only reason that the leopard would attack was if he really felt cornered. He would just go away because he's got nothing to lose here. The kill's in a tree, it's completely safe. He gains nothing by attacking the hyenas. The hyenas, however, will gain, well, less predators. So all the predators will attack each other from time to time in order to reduce competition. And so it's much more likely that the hyenas would have a go at him. But he's probably a 75 to 80 kilogram animal. That is, in pounds, about 2.2, say 180 pounds. He's fast. He's incredibly strong. He's able to lift more than his own body weight up into a tree. So if they were to tangle with him, yes, while they might survive, and they, of course, can seek food if they get injured, the chances that they will be injured by a male leopard like this are very high. So although they could take the risk, they don't want to. All right, let's head across to Brent's favourite friend on Cheetah Plains, and the only animal that he's named, or the second animal that he's named. Ask him about that, and I'll see you a little later.
So hello, and we have Gnormless Gnorman the Gnu surveying his vast open territory. And he is looking to the south, and there was a black-backed jackal that ran through into those thickets there. We will keep checking for it. Hopefully he pops out and makes another appearance. But apart from Gnormless, the vast expanse of the plains is empty. Or is it? It is. I thought I spotted something in my binoculars there for a second. Got very excited, but it turned out to be one of these very annoying cheetah-like stumps that seem to be very common in this area. So it's always very important to use your binoculars when in an area like this, and just check under all the little bushes and anything that looks slightly suspicious. It's worth having a look at. I'm very happy Gnormless is well. Unfortunately, he's got no lady friends at the moment, but they will come. I have faith. You can hear magpie shrikes calling. Hear a Coqui Franklin. So Aaron, who's from the land of the long white cloud, is wondering, is there a chance a hartebeest might wander out from the Kruger? Unfortunately not. And I mean, there's a chance a sesame might, which is part of the hartebeest family. But the true hartebeest, like a red hartebeest, which is the only one that occurs in southern Africa, or I lie, there's Liechtenstein's hartebeest as well in Mozambique and Zimbabwe, do not occur in South Africa, unfortunately. Red hartebeest is a very arid species, so it prefers the semi-deserts and deserts. And that's where you find red hartebeest. The sesame, which is a member of the hartebeest family, is very rare in South Africa. And there's a very small population in Kruger, but further north in Kruger, I haven't heard of them being seen down in these parts. But that's the beauty of the bush. You never know. There could be one. Unfortunately, that jackal seems to have gone right into that little dip there, so no sign of him popping out the other side. But we're going to continue on. Still got that sort of lucky feeling that we're going to find a set of tracks or even an animal down here while we search Cheetah Plains. It's amazing, you can't help but your eyes get drawn to this open area and just checking under every little bush. So when the cheetah do move into this area, they come from these open areas to the south and head north. So always a good spot to look for tracks. Well, Gail, thanks very much for that, says the Hollywood Pride live in South Luangwa. Well, it's possible. I've seen them before. They were called the Hollywood Pride. I have been to South Luangwa a few times. I'm actually, there's a very strong chance I'm actually going to go later in the year again. So if I am there, I will definitely keep a lookout for the film stars of Hollywood, South Luangwa, not Los Angeles. I think I probably preferred the company of the film stars of South Luangwa than of Los Angeles there. We're definitely in search of that male coalition of cheetahs at the moment. And Jeffrey from the Lone Star State is wondering, did we ever find out whether they have names or not? As far as I'm aware, they don't. But I've never, no, they're just called the cheetahs, as far as I know. They don't have names. But I will double check. Maybe it's worth us thinking about it. Let's not jump onto names just too quickly. Maybe let's think about it, maybe spend a bit more time with them before we start naming them. Maybe get to see a little bit of their personalities. And hopefully having access to Cheetah Plains is going to give us that opportunity. I definitely think it's something we should start considering, thinking about names. While we keep checking for the unnamed cheetah boys, let's jump back to James, who's with the named Tingana.
Look, there he is, everybody. He hasn't moved at all since you last saw us. I hope Norman the canoe was in fine fettle, and I also hope that you asked Brent about naming him. I'm just trying to help one of these guys in here. From Cheetah Plains, so that they can see the leopard. There we go. They're in now. just quickly going to show you also, once I've managed to edit it slightly, the photograph I've just taken of Tingana through the binoculars. David is most impressed, aren't you, David?
I am.
The light is getting quite bright, I must say. There's that. You see it there? See? That's not too bad. Through binoculars. Who needs a great big 400mm lens? Just need a phone and some binos. I believe many of you are not in fact watching this particular feed, but you are also watching the probably parallel feed of the Arathusa Dam camera, where the wild dogs are running about the place. That is so exciting that you're able to view a leopard, push Alt-Tab on your computer, and suddenly a new live stream of a fantastic leopard like this will pop up. I think it's amazing. And of course the second greatest Twitter handle in the world, James Hendry's old hat, soon to be James Richards' new hat. I'll just show you the ending article. There it is. That is James Hendry's old hat, after whom the current Twitter inquiry was named. Horrendous article of clothing there. James Hendry's old hat, you say you're always amazed at the patience of hyenas, and are they the most patient animals out here? I would say yes. I think they are probably the most patient. They don't tend to get too het up about anything, and they'll wait until he either drops something or a piece of that carcass rots out of the tree. There's a starling, a virtual starling. You can hear alarm calling off to the left-hand side there, David. No, don't worry about that. I can't see him anymore. But it's because there's so many predators around. The birds will alarm call as they go. If they see the leopard there, they'll see his dappled colours before we would. And that's what the starling is alarm calling at. I think it's going to be worth sitting here, everyone. I think he's probably going to go up at some stage into the tree and continue eating his kudu. I mean, we could go and try and find something else, but I think for the next little while, let's just sit here. If you'd like me to move on, you can let us know, hashtag SafariLIVE or questions at WildEarth.tv. But I think let's sit here for a few more minutes and see what he does. Because to watch a leopard going into a tree is a rare and wonderful thing. Now, this is a very good opportunity for us to discuss the differences between the different cats. And Brent Smith, of course, is on Cheetah Plains, hoping to find a cheetah. And Bryan and Marilyn in Cincinnati. I'm not sure I've heard from you before, so wonderful to hear from you. Thank you for getting hold of us. You want to know the difference between a leopard and a cheetah? Well, while you're looking at that leopard, take note of a few things, and then we'll get on to the cheetah. Take note of the size of his neck muscles, the size of his skull in relation to the rest of his body. It's massive. It's got hugely powerful jaw muscles that help him to have a very strong bite. Look at the shoulders as you go down his back. huge amount of muscle in the shoulders there, and going into his back legs, which are smaller, but still very muscly. And he's basically, in human terms, if you think of I'm trying to think of something that you might be able to relate to. I don't know if you watch athletics at all, but a sprinter, a 100-meter sprinter, he's like the Usain Bolt. He's got that kind of very fast twitch, red muscle fiber build. Another sports person you might think of is like a football player, an American football player, gridiron player. Explosive power off the ground, and he's also got very big teeth. Very large canines. Not that gridiron players necessarily have very large canines. Now, a cheetah, if we were to pretend that that leopard was going to turn into a cheetah, was going to morph into the cheetah, what you would notice is a shrinking of the head. So picture the head shrinking completely to about probably 80% of its current size, shape quite similar, but much smaller in relation to the rest of the body. That enormous muscle behind the ears that goes down into the jaws is vastly reduced. If you travel down his shoulder there, that would be much smaller, it would be sleeker. The legs of the cheetah would be longer. And if you go around to the back end, where a leopard is slightly lower at the back end than the front, the cheetah is pretty much equal, if not slightly higher at the back end, with more powerful hindquarters for running. Much slighter build, built a bit like a marathon runner, I suppose. And interestingly, a cheetah achieves its speed not from the fast twitch muscle fiber like a leopard would, but from incredible suppleness, incredible ability to bend the spine, far more so than any of the other cats. The other thing, of course, the most obvious feature would be that the spots are completely different. On a cheetah, the spots are spots as opposed to the rosettes of the leopard. So those are the major differences. Then, if the cheetah were to look at us like Tingana has been looking at us from time to time, you would notice that instead of those massive canines, the cheetah would have much smaller canines and a much larger nose. And that nose and the reduced canines are to allow extra oxygen to get into the nose while the cheetah has got its prey in the death grip. So a cheetah doesn't kill with a bite to the back of the neck like leopards do with small prey. They will always choke their prey, and while they're choking their prey, they have to be able to breathe, because the amount of energy they use in a chase, because they run so incredibly fast, the amount of energy they use is massive, and they have to replace that. And so they must be able to suck in as much oxygen as possible. So even though they've gripped their prey around the throat, they have to be able to breathe in huge gulps of oxygen at the same time. And that's why they've got that huge nose and much smaller top canines. And that's pretty much the difference between cheetah and leopards. Bryan and Marilyn of Cincinnati, thank you for talking to us, and please keep doing it. Right, a couple of you voted that we stay with Tingana for a little while. I think that's a good option. There are some buffalo and elephant around, but we don't always get time to spend with Tingana. So I think let's sit here for a bit longer. Man or woman after my own heart, I'm not sure which. James Hendry's old hat. You're looking at the grass around Tingana and wondering what it is. Right, okay, I can see what you're looking at. It's a grass species called Melanus, and I think that's the genus. I think it's Melanus repens or Melanus nerviglumus, one of the two. I forget which. And it is golden, like you can see, but you can also maybe see that it's very pink. And you see the kind of big one, Dave, the big one in front of his back. If you zoom straight in where you are now, middle of the picture, over the top of that tree, that's the stuff. There we go, beautiful. And it's golden pink. And I'm not going to get out and go and fetch some for you, but if I did, you'd be able to see the slight pinky sort of flamingo coloured tinge to it. It's beautiful grass. Nice one, thank you, James Hendry's old hat. And the virtual starlings are now coming to life behind us. One of them shouting. In fact, Dave, there is one, you can see there. Oh, it's just gone into that tree. And our second regular viewer from New Zealand is giving us a call here, asking about how long Tingana will remain a dominant male leopard in the area. Dave's just trying to find you a virtual starling there, which was sitting very prettily and now has hidden in the tree, camera shy. Aaron, he will remain a dominant male leopard probably until he's about 13 or 14 years old. The oldest male leopard on record in the Sabi Sands was the Campan male, who lived to 15, we think. And Tingana is now, of course, 9, approaching 10. So I think he's probably got another almost 4 years, maybe even a little bit longer, as a dominant male in the area. I don't think he's going anywhere. There's certainly no challengers around here that are going to be able to push him out. The only bigger male leopard in the area, he's a pretty average-sized male leopard. I think he's not the biggest I've ever seen, but he's big. So he's not going to be pushed out physically. But there is a very large male leopard called the Anderson male. The Anderson male, of course, lives far to the western side of the reserve, to the other side of Arathusa. Now, he might be able to push Tingana out, but, you know, Tingana he's got his own problems in his own territory, and Tingana is large, and he's in his prime. You know, this is a male leopard in his prime. And Red, you're interested in whether the hyenas are still here or whether they're at bay or not. Red, the hyenas are just through here, and you might just be able to see the odd flicking of a tail or an ear or something like that. There you go, you saw a flick there. And they're all through there, and they will wait there, Red. They will not be impatient. They know that they're in for the long haul. They're settled down for the day in some comfortable shade. They'll chat to each other and say to each other whatever hyenas do. Talk about the night. Probably 2 males, I suspect. Chat about the lot of a male hyena in hyena society. That of subordinate and sort of dominated, henpecked. Wonder to themselves why it is that they're the only mammal species out here where the female completely dominates the male, other than our own species, of course. We know that the female does dominate the male entirely. Let's have a look at the leopard. John, an interesting one from you about when leopards die. And you say that you've read or heard that they return to the place of their birth when they die. John, it's a very attractive story. It is, in fact, utter nonsense, however, especially for a male leopard. A male leopard is often territorial in an area completely distinct from where he was born. Tingana is a case in point. He was born on Lion Sands. I'm pretty sure I've got that right this time round. And he's not going to go all the way back there just to die. He will die in his territory, or he will, as a result of a fight, or most likely, he will become what we call a dispersal male as he gets older, and he will then sort of leave the territory in 3 or 4 years' time, stay around the area, quite possibly, and yeah, look, he may end up, if he really has a rough time, if he really gets chased about, he may by chance end up way back down south at Lion Sands, and I think it's highly unlikely. Thanks, John, for that. Females, of course, live where they're in the territories that they're born or around there, so they could possibly die in the territories in which they were born. Let's go across to Brent Smith now, who is telling you about Ghost in the Darkness and the man-eating lions of Tsavo. Brent Smith knows the story better than anyone else in the world.
So we are now checking around the central areas of Cheetah Plains, up on the crests, hoping for some leopard. But while we check, we did start chatting about the man-eaters of Tsavo. Now, as I said, I think the point we got to is when they got stuck at building a bridge over the Tsavo River. Let me just turn that down. So, the reason that man-eating became so prolific, specifically on the suicide line, is in those days the living conditions weren't great, and the tents weren't solid. They were sort of open flaps. Also, just before the sort of real bad bout of man-eating started, there was an outbreak of dysentery amongst the railway workers. Hyena. And that caused quite a lot of deaths. And they were buried in sort of these shallow mass graves, and the lions actually started digging them up and feeding off the corpses. And one of the first places those specific man-eaters raided was the hospital tent. Now, of course, in the Hollywood version, a lot of this is greatly over-exaggerated. They didn't walk into the tent and kill 28 people. They used to take one at a time or two at a time. And very interesting, they were maneless male lions. I think just looking at the original photos and stuff, they were just young male lions rather than maneless male lions, and nomadic male lions that happened to come across a really easy food source. But they were eventually shot by, it was Lieutenant Colonel Patterson of the Royal Engineering Corps, who was supervising the building of that railway line. The one part that is true about that movie is when they built that sort of steel cage trap to catch the lions. Alright, just having a quick look. Like a tag mark there, but it's just elephants. And it had some guys inside who were armed with the good old standard British military 303, and they missed. There we go, some Egyptian geese flying over. So they did miss inside a very small confined space in the trap that the lions did manage to escape from. Now, if you watch the movie, there's this wonderful roguish character played by, what's his name now? Michael Douglas, who arrives on the scene, and his name is Remington, of course, after the firearm. And he's a great white American hunter, swagger, large firearm over the shoulder, surrounded by loyal Maasai. He did not exist. That was purely for the movie. Well, if he did exist, he didn't exist in Africa, and definitely wasn't there hunting the man-eaters. So it is a very entertaining film, but very loosely based on the book by Colonel Patterson about that whole saga, which was called The Man-Eaters of Tsavo. Now, humans have a fascination with man-eating, and probably the most prolific of all the big cat species as a man-eater is the tiger. Obviously, they're so big and so large. that man is a very easy prey, and man-eating, the sort of biggest man-eating stories all come from India. And there's a couple in Africa, the man-eaters of Savo. It was the man-eaters down in southern Tanzania around what is now Ruaha National Park. But India is far more famous for man-eating tigers and leopards, and that's obviously the very obvious answer to why that India's got a lot more history of man-eating is just a lot more people, and a lot less space and a lot less normal prey for the animal species. But we actually sit in probably the longest and still continuing man-eating story that's going on is actually right here in the Greater Kruger National Park. It's not as bad as it was, say, in the 80s and 90s, but during Mozambique's civil war, lots of people tried to escape Mozambique and get away from the civil war and come to South Africa, and a lot of them doing that illegally. The term for it was called Jampamajozi, and people would try to cross the Kruger National Park to get into South Africa, probably the least protected boundary in terms of human protection, the sort of military protection. And these illegal immigrants used to cross during the day, and then the South African government stepped up its watching of the boundary, so they actually put military bases inside the national park to patrol and make sure and to try to stop this flow of illegal immigrants. So what happened from there is that people started crossing at night, and a lion at night is a very different thing to during the day. And there were quite a few prides of lions that for many years, and to this day a little bit less, actually specialized in hunting illegal immigrants as they crossed the Kruger. There's a wonderful book, I've forgotten the author's name just off, but it's called The Man-Eaters of Eden, which covers the Kruger National Park man-eating story. It's estimated that the Kruger lions over the last 40 years or so have eaten probably over 100,000 people trying to cross that Kruger boundary. It's estimated between, I think it's between 40 and 100,000 people, because of course, being illegal immigrants, a lot of those deaths are never reported or not even known. The other man-eater of Africa, and probably the most prolific man-eater of all African animals, is the Nile crocodile. And again, a lot of Nile crocodile attacks happen in very rural parts and are never actually reported to the authorities. There's probably far more than you know about, and I've actually seen bangles, beads, and actually even pieces of people from the inside of a crocodile's stomach. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, it's a bit grim. I do have a slightly funny story about crocodile. It's funny and it's not. It's one of those sort of slightly macabre stories. So when I was living in Tanzania, we converted a hunting concession into a photographic safari area. So a lot of the staff were very used to the hunting way of doing things, which is very different from a luxury safari way of things. So while you were having dinner and entertaining your guests with your fine crystal glasses and china and sterling silver, Majaliwa would walk through in a very holy pair of shorts that left nothing to the imagination and say, but Brent, we are running low on whatever, fuel, oil for the paraffin lamps. And so basically I had a big meeting with the staff, and it happened that morning that this incident occurred at night. So I had the meeting, and I was like, guys, you cannot come through not dressed in uniform. You cannot disturb me while I'm with guests and entertaining for dinner unless it is an emergency. If you guys do, I'm going to put in a penalty system where you are going to be fined, I've forgotten what it was, but anyway, a penalty system that you would be in trouble if you disturbed me while I was dealing with guests. So we had this big meeting, and what you see, Bryan? No. And that evening, I was sitting with my very lovely guests who are from Israel, and chatting away, and I was drinking a fine red wine while having a wonderful steak. And all of a sudden, I see Majaliwa appear just outside of the lantern light. And I can see he really, really wants to tell me something. But obviously he's scared now because we've just had this big meeting about when is it appropriate to disturb and when it is not. So I see him and I think, well, at least he's not walking right into the dining tent. And we're getting somewhere. So I casually take another sip of my drink, slice a little bit of steak, pop it in my mouth. And then I said, well, excuse me, I just want to see what Majaliwa wants. And he had his uniform on. And I walk out there, and as I get just outside, Majaliwa says, Bwana Brent, Idi has been eaten by the crocodile. And I'm like, well, this is an emergency, you can call me through for dinner. And I said, is he gone? What's the story? And he's like, no, he is still being eaten by the crocodile. Run to my tent, grab my rifle, run to the staff village, which is about 200 meters away. Get there. There are two guys holding Idi's arm and a crocodile on the other end. I felt so guilty after that because Majaliwa was too scared in case he got into trouble to call me for the crocodile. I then ran into the water and I shot the crocodile while it was attached to poor Idi. Idi survived. He had some damage to his arm and whatnot, but he is still well and healthy, and fortunately not inside a crocodile's belly. And he was very lucky. It was a small crocodile, just a little bit bigger than me, and it was a very interesting time working in Tanzania and the different cultural differences. So I built showers, but the guys still preferred to bath in the river, even though there were crocodiles there. So after dark, he was sitting in a shallow part of the river, and I think that's why the crocodile went for him. If you'd been standing, you would have been too big. That crocodile probably wouldn't have taken the chance. But because he was sitting down, that crocodile latched basically onto his arm here. So those large canines sunk into there, and then with his friends trying to pull him out, and the crocodile obviously pulling the other way, caused quite big rips. But he was very, very lucky that the crocodile didn't break the bone or anything, because they have incredibly powerful full jaws that snap. And anyway, well, I stitched him up and cleaned him up, and he was fine in about 2 weeks. So it was a very scary time. But enough of man-eaters and such things. Let's go look at the great eater of impala, Tingana.
Well, he's more a kudu eater, of course, than an impala eater at this stage, but many impala he has eaten. And he has moved precisely, Dave, 3 feet from where he was when you last saw him. We had a high-action incident where he got up and lay down again. But the interesting thing about what we're looking at now, if you look carefully at his back, you might see some shiny silver things. Now, those far from being the jewels decked on a male leopard of this man standing, they are in fact engorged ticks. Fat female ticks sucking on Tingana's blood. And they, of course, will not tolerate oxpeckers, which would have a field day on those ticks. Anyway, they obviously don't bug him too much, because he's definitely supple enough to scratch them off with his claws. You can't really see them there, but where they are is they're actually on the black parts of his spots, and that's really interesting. None of them, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 at least, big engorged sort of silver colored ticks. None of them are on the golden parts of his coat. They're all on pieces of black. And that is really interesting. I don't know why that would be, except to say that there is a theory for the stripes that occur behind an impala's tail. And the theory goes that because that particular area of the impala's skin is warmer, the ticks concentrate there and then they're able to be brushed away by the tail. So maybe there's something to the fact that the black spots on the leopard do radiate a bit more heat than the gold, and that's why the ticks are there. It's interesting. And you can hear that tapping, I'm sure. Tick, 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 tick. It's a bearded woodpecker. And also a little bit in the distance, the chin spot batters. All right, everybody, I think we're going to leave Tingana here. I don't think he's going to do a great deal else today. Unless you have some pressing questions you'd like to ask about him. I know there have been some elephants around and some large herds of buffalo, so maybe it's a good idea to go and see if we can see one of those, if you don't mind. And Brenda, you want to see the kill again just before we leave? Well, there it is. And I'll just describe to you how I know it's a female kudu. Well, I know it's a female because it doesn't have horns, but the most indicative thing, of course, is the color and the size of the ears. Look at those huge ears. Very typical of a kudu. Now, even if you look at the legs, if you go to the back legs there, you can see that it isn't an impala because it doesn't have those fetlock glands, the glands that an impala has on the back of its fetlocks. A fetlock is basically the ankle, well, it's not the ankle joint, but it's, I suppose, the equivalent. And Megan, you're interested in what tree this is. This tree's got a lovely Shangaan name. It's called Ntoma. And so when Aubrey said to me that he'd found the kudu, he said, Inyama yilentomeni. The meat is in the jackalberry tree. It's a jackalberry tree. And they are truly, I think, the most beautiful trees that we get here. They're semi-deciduous, which means that they, in fact, I know exactly where we're going to go next. They're semi-deciduous, which means they sometimes lose their leaves, and they lose them at irregular times of the year. We're going to go towards Twin Dams now, where there is a jackalberry tree, and it has been fruiting, and I imagine by now there must be lots of nice ripe fruits on the ground there, and we will give David his first taste of jackalberries. Are you excited, David?
Lovely.
Are you overwhelmed?
Oh,
Yes, overwhelmed with excitement, is David. They're actually really delicious. I'm just going to wait for Mike to stop, and then we'll move out of the area. So have a last look at Tingana. Andy's art blog diary, a new viewer. That's an incredibly long Twitter handle. Very nice to hear from you, Andy's art blog viewer. And you've just tuned in to the stream, and you say, where in which part of Africa are we? We're in South Africa, Andy, the northeast corner of South Africa, in the iconic Kruger National Park, which I imagine you've heard of. Sort of the equivalent of, I guess, of the United States' Yellowstone National Park. And we're sitting on the western fringes of the Kruger National Park on a little reserve called Djuma, which is about 1,200 hectares, or about 2,500 acres. Thank you for joining us, and please keep watching. Rather than my face, Andy, have a look at this leopard for the last time. We're going to look at him, and then we're going to head out of here and see if we can't go and find some other interesting things for the last... I think we've probably got about an hour left of the drive. He's panting because it's starting to get warm, and of course because he's eaten so very much of that kudu. I am going to move as soon as Mike has stopped moving. I just don't want to move. We try and move only one vehicle at a time in a static sighting. Static meaning, you know, the animal's not moving around, so there's no real need for us all to be moving around. Poor old Mike there, of course, is driving an enormous Land Cruiser. It's not nearly as maneuverable as this little Land Rover. I think he's having a short fight there with a knobthorn tree, which the knobthorn is winning comprehensively at the moment. You're leaving, okay. As you were.
I'll say goodbye to you again before I leave.
Okay, okay. He's been trying to leave now for 10 minutes. His guests are being left variously on buffalo thorn trees, knob thorn trees. Hello, Chris. Yes, I think we can actually do what you request. While Mike is moving out of here, you want to see those hyenas once more. They're just in the drainage line here. I can probably sneak through there, so let's go and have a quick look. And we can try and identify that one male. We know we've got Nkombo here. We don't know who the other one is. Driving right under the kill. It's okay. Tingana is very comfortable around people, so he's not going to worry about that. There are the hyenas. And we'll try and get into a viewing position where you can see them both. You can only see the one at the moment. I think that is Nkombo. With his slightly beaten up ears. See the other one at all, Dave? Right there.
Yeah.
Chris, there. I think that's Nkombo. I'm just going to keep an eye out behind us to see if Tingana doesn't go up the tree. That's exactly what he could do. Yeah, I can't see the other one. Maybe he's moved off. He may have headed down towards the dam to have a drink. This chap is extremely relaxed, isn't he? And this is what hyenas will do. They find a comfortable spot of cooling sand to lie on, and there he'll just wait. Don't know where the other one is. Oh, here we go. Just hear a bit of motion behind us. It's still Mike, I think, trying to extract out of the sighting. Either that or a giant herd of elephants coming through the area. Let's just go back to see what this hyena is looking at. Might be a bit of action here, everybody. The leopard, at least the hyena, is walking towards the leopard. And I can't turn around now. Hang on. See where he went? Towards the leopard. Called a 75-point turn, everyone. Directly behind us. The hyena. He's just having a little scrape around to see if there isn't a scrap maybe that he's missed. A mid-morning snack before the full meal comes hurtling out of the tree. All right, everyone, I think let's get out of here. We'll come back here later this afternoon and see what's going on. One last look at Tingana. He is still lying very comfortably there and next to his log. And James Richard, my feeling exactly. You say Tingana's been wonderful, but let's go and look for some elephants. Here we go. Thank you, Tingana. Much appreciated. Thank you, Aubrey, for finding Tingana, of course. got a thorn underneath my bottom, David. Very sore. Right, watch your heads, everyone. Yeah, we've just got to get the aerial out the way. If we do lose signal, that's why. Okay, it's back up. Now, let us ease our way down to Treehouse Dam, which is not far from here. I'm not entirely sure why young Michael had such an issue getting out of this area. Oh, that's why. Because the tree that we're just driving past now was in fact standing, a dead knobform. It is now reclining on the ground. Oh, what a wonderful morning. I was a bit depressed, I have to say, when we drove past here and we didn't find him earlier. Siberia Zumi, and I don't know that I can answer your question exactly, but I'm going to try. While I do it, I'm just going to pick some of this grass that we were chatting about earlier. I'm going to do it with care, of course, because we are not far from the leopard, but we're far enough for this to be a safe activity. Siberia, you want to know what reserves are in the Sabi Sands? Well, I suppose the Sabi Sands would be the reserve itself. Here's some hyena dung. Can you see this?
No, I'm afraid not.
Not. Okay. Let me move it to where you can see it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
There's a big piece of hyena dung. Definitely a mature hyena that made that. Siberia, I'll get back to you now. But we had a question from James Hendry's hat earlier, old hat or scaffy hat, I can't remember exactly what it is. But here is this lovely grass, I think, that you were talking about, that looked so golden, but is in fact pink. Or some of them are pink. When they get older, they lose that pinkish color, but as young grasses, they're beautiful pink and yellow. Isn't that lovely? Hopeless for grazing, really nice for decoration. Right, Siberia, reserves in the Sabi Sands. Well, like I say, the Sabi Sands is the reserve, but there are a whole lot of different properties. Some of them sort of private holiday farms, if you like, and others of them run as commercial concerns. And the private farms would include Buffelshoek, which is a collection of private farms, and it would include Ottawa, which is owned by one chap called Tom Robson. And then the rest of the Sabi Sands is made up of commercial concerns. Famous names: Mala Mala, Londolozi, Singita, Lion Sands. Sorry, there is another private area called Dudley, which is owned by a family, and they come down every so often, and that's got it's kind of a tragic story, classic case of, you know, the family getting bigger and bigger as the years go by. And so there are now almost 50, I think, individual landowners on that particular piece of land. And then off to the west, of course, the names that, like Savannah, Dulini, Leadwood, what else have we got there? Ulasaba, of course, very famous, Richard Branson's spot. Oh, there's a beautiful male kudu coming up here. Possibly lost his consort 2 nights ago to Tingana. He's about to pop up onto the dam wall there. He's stunning, look at him. There's no surprise that the kudu kop, or the kudu head, is the emblem of the South African national parks. So Siberia, I hope that answers your question. I probably left out one or two. Obviously up in the north here we've got Cheetah Plains and Arathusa and Juma and Chitwa, and one or two other private farms south of us like Little Gowrie and Hofmann's. There's also Torchwood. He's got a limp, this old kudu. He's probably about 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, he's probably about 6 years old, maybe 7. And he's now having a drink. And notice how he doesn't want to move into where the water's a bit deeper. And I suspect that's because he doesn't want his feet to be mired in mud and into an area where he cannot escape, should something come up and try and get him. But he's been quite confiding. You seldom get this. Kudu will normally move away from us. I don't think I could get any closer to him before he would run off. But really special to have him drinking like this. And you can see really nicely reflecting in the sun there the white chevrons underneath his eyes. I wonder how he hurt himself. Maybe he stepped in a hole or something like that. And just in case you're wondering if Brent Leo Smith has been eaten by a man-eating animal, he hasn't. Well, not yet anyway. He has run out of battery for the moment. They've only got one left, so they're preserving it in case something spectacular occurs. And all above them the dove sings. Such a reminiscent sound of my childhood, I must say, because the dove does occur just about everywhere in Africa, at least in South Africa, and it is a connection to the wild. So even if you happen to live in Johannesburg, if you happen to live in Cape Town, if you happen to live in the mountains of the Drakensberg or down here in the Lowveld, so the ring-necked dove will call. And so if you are in a city, the dove is always a connection to this kind of picture, an attachment to a memory like this, which will take you back to the wild. Oh, that's just stunning. In Bularay, you say a wonderful perspective of the kudu walking across the dam wall. It is. He's not in a good way though, is he? His right front foot is very sore. I wonder what's happened to him. He may well survive. He may well recover from that. Not if he walks too close to Tingana. Let's let him walk away and not chase him with the sound of the vehicle. After that wonderful show he gave us. Stunning. Good job. Now, while we're on these drives, of course, and when we're talking to the girls in final control, you know, there are enormous numbers of adjectives that we try and use. And I find that we all tend to get stuck on some and use them more than others at various times. Now, today I've been stuck on wonderful. I've used it at least 7,584 times. And the one that has been stuck around camp for many weeks is epic. So every time you have a good sighting, you call it an epic sighting. And we've all done it. We all do it. Great elephant sighting, it's epic elephant sighting. Epic wild dog sighting. Epic virtual starling sighting, and we've now banned the use of the word epic in camp, at least for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm going to ban myself from using the word wonderful for at least, well, the next hour or so. First Kirsten is suggesting delightful. That is because Kirsten is from Durban in Natal, where English was only learned, I think, in the late 1950s. That is not entirely fair. Durban, of course, another part of South Africa, so you were wondering about where in South Africa we are. It's down on the east coast of South Africa. It's a very, I wouldn't describe it as the world's most beautiful city, but it certainly has got some incredible natural wonderment close by, beautiful sea, and if you go away from Durban into the interior, you get the Natal Midlands, which look like a little piece of England that's kind of been dropped into South Africa. Well, that does in the summertime anyway. In the winter, it's very African. And then the Drakensberg Mountains, of course, not too far from Durban. Yes, they do have a very interesting accent from that part of the world. One day we'll get Kirsten to speak for you live on camera. I suspect you won't understand what she's saying. That's not fair. You will. Okay, we're going to head towards Twin Dams now. There was a report some time ago of some elephant around that area. And we'll see if we can't find the herd that was there. That big herd that Aubrey had a look at after he left the leopard, which he found very kindly for us and let us watch. I'm just going to announce that I've left the leopard. Stations I've left Tingana static at the same place, unattended. I don't think there's anyone responding. He has not moved. So now anybody who wants to go and see him can. We will definitely, I'm sure Sam or Brent will go there this afternoon. I don't think I'm driving this afternoon. Barring some disaster, I shan't be. So Sam or Brent will take you back to Tingana this afternoon and hopefully catch him on the limb of that tree eating his kudu in the, I nearly said it again, in the gorgeous afternoon golden light. Quite difficult, David. Quite difficult not to say a word you've got stuck saying. Magnificent is another one I get stuck on quite a lot. And it took me about 6 or 7 drives to be able to get out of the habit of saying, see you just now. I just couldn't not say it. I still say it every so often, but I don't say it quite as often as I used to. Now, we may well lose some signal through here, so we're heading towards Twin Dams, hopefully to see some elephants. While we do that, let us go across to the wonderful Brent Leo's.
So we're back from the plains of the Cheetah. It was very quiet out there this morning, but nevertheless very beautiful. So we are on the cutline of the Cheetah, which is the eastern edge of our traverse area in Djuma. And we're hoping to find something fascinating for you. And I am still in search of the impossible tree for not the nearly impossible tree quiz, but the impossible tree quiz. And I think if I can find the specific tree I'm looking for, I've got you guys on the ropes. But wonderful to have Mr. Tingana around. So there's a couple of different impossible trees we can look for. And I think I've got 2 in mind, and we're going to see if we can find one of them. I think, unfortunately, one is very deep inside a block, so it'd be very difficult to find it. There might be one actually near Buffelshoek Waterhole, so we'll start meandering towards that area. There's a funny light in the air today. And I think it's a combination of dust and smoke. I think there's a big fire somewhere, a haze that's around. Nowhere close to us though. So I think it was 2 or 3 drives ago, we came across a green-winged petilia. It used to be called a Melba finch, which I think would be a new one for a lot of bird lists. And Lucy in South Bend, Indiana, was asking for some finches for her bird list. You see, Bryan and I will have our eyes scouring the trees for a finch or 2. We don't get too many finch species here, so it is a good one to add to your bird lists. Now, tomorrow is a very important day for WildEarth and the SafariLIVE team. My partner in crime, Bryan, will be turning 30 years old. He's becoming an adult, finally. Hopefully not, though. There we go. The thumb is going to have to definitely have a special outfit on tomorrow. So, Jim Butler is wondering, do birds of prey ever steal pieces of leopard kills? They do, Jim, and the one who does it the most is the batelier. And if you remind me, I will go past the remains of one of Karula's kills that's been moved from one tree to another, but there's very little meat left on it, by a batelier. So it is on Treehouse Road, and a dead knobthorn there. It moved the remains of a duiker carcass that Karula had finished eating from a marula tree to that dead knobthorn where it would have easier access to feed. So they do. It's not that common, and the species, as I said, that does it the most often is the batelier. Lots and lots of heli tracks on the road here. So Lael in Washington is saying, besides ducks and geese, how many other birds migrate north? Well, strangely enough, our ducks and geese don't really migrate north. They're resident. They have what we call seasonal migrations between different areas. So the birds that we see here that migrate north, and the summer chasers, are your swallows, cuckoos, bee-eaters, woodlands kingfisher, pygmy kingfisher. What else? What is that? Those are our birds that migrate north. So the duck that migrates the most around here is the knob-billed or comb duck, but they migrate between different bodies of water rather than big migrations over lots of distance. Now, the most impressive migration of all birds is a seabird that we do see off the coast of South Africa, called the Arctic tern. Now, their migration covers 11,000 miles. Now, isn't that amazing? They spend the majority of their life in the movement and in the air. So lots of happy birthdays already for Mr. Bryan Joubert.
Thank you, everyone.
And everyone's saying Bryan needs a cheetah for his birthday. Would you prefer a cheetah or a wild dog, Bryan?
How about both?
Oh, in the same sighting.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. The standard, the bar is set for Bryan's birthday. So while I search for the impossible tree, James has got, hopefully, not so much of an impossible tree to show you.
Here I sit beneath the same kind of tree that Tingana had hung his kill in. This, of course, is a female version of the same tree, the jackalberry. And this particular one that you're looking at is massive. And I'm just sitting here to give you some perspective, but also because I am gathering fruits for David's breakfast. This is how kind I am, David, to you.
Thanks, James.
And I'm bringing some fruits to you. They are not, interestingly, that sweet. I've eaten two myself already, and I'm going to let Dave tell you what he thinks they taste like first before I give you my impression of these berries. So these are ripe, Dave. There, we'll just show them to you first before I give them to David. You see them there?
Yep.
That is a ripe jackalberry fruit, ready to be consumed. Mmm. Right, now don't eat the whole thing. Oops, sorry. Just break off the skin.
All right.
Then you can kind of suck the fleshy seeds out. They're quite dry, these ones. Not bad.
Interesting texture.
What do you think it tastes like? Excuse me.
Tastes a bit like porridge to me.
Porridge, okay. Avo? Do you get avo?
Definitely.
It tastes like an avocado. And not very sweet. I mean, they can be sweet, but these ones really aren't sweet, and they haven't been on this tree this year. But that reminded me that, of course, much of the fruit that we eat was never originally as sweet as it is now. And it's not so much genetic modification, but with selective breeding, we've bred fruit into this incredibly sweet stuff, when actually, most of the time, the fruits that, in their natural state, you know, as they evolve, are not anything like as sweet as we have made them. So I think that's always quite interesting. So that's the jackalberry tree and its fruit. And I'm surprised there aren't more monkeys and baboons around here eating them, because they are a great favorite. Maybe this tree is just known to have fairly bland fruit. Definitely a taste of avocado, but not nearly as sweet as I've tasted jackalberries before. Now we're at Twin Dams. That particular jackalberry is at Twin Dams, and they are not, there are no elephants, I'm afraid, so we're going to keep going down the road towards the next water point. Jen, you say they look like olives. They do absolutely look like olives. They thankfully don't taste anything like olives, because a raw olive off a tree is a truly disgusting thing. And I'd love to know how on earth they decided that soaking, and maybe you don't know this, but if an olive that you would buy at the supermarket has been soaked in brine or salt water normally for a very long time, and that's what makes them so delicious, because it sucks out the bitterness in them. But I would love to know who it was in the world that decided it would be a good idea to take this foul-tasting fruit and put it in salt water, because that would eventually pull out the bitterness, and created one of the world's most popular fruits. Some very lonely or bored Greek peasant at some stage in prehistory, obviously. I think they do come from Greece, don't they? I think that's where they're from. Hello, Gail. You're in Australia, but you weren't always from Australia, were you, Gail? You say that you too were from Durban and that I was being very rude to Kirsten. Yes, I was, I suppose, but I assure you that my rudeness to Kirsten is nothing like the capabilities of rudeness to which she has extended herself. She really is, if there is one person in the world more sarcastic than I am, it's Kirsten McLennan-Smith. But Gail, you say that Durban is a very pleasant place. It is a very pleasant place. Questions on your old hometown. Elephants.
So we're just slowly sidling down towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole to see what's out and about. So far, unfortunately, not much. Very quiet in the east this morning. Oh, Ellies! Yay! Some bulls! Oh, look at this. It's going to be beautiful. Hello, little men. So a little bachelor group of Ellie bulls atop the dam wall, and there is a hippopotamus as well, but we'll look at him later. Here we go. Hello, boys. Definitely been missing elephants this morning, so wonderful to catch up with them. And these young bull herds are quite fun. They do tend to play quite a bit and push and shove, and it looks like that's exactly what these two are up to. Look at that. Oh, isn't that sweet? Definitely the cool kids hanging their trunks over their tusks. No, you see how he just pointed his trunk towards us to have a little smell? So the big one on the left is probably mid-20s, and the one on the right, oh, maybe close to 20 years old. And then there's another about the same age, also around 20 over there. Oh, and he's having a little dust bath. Oh, Bryan, the other two, having a bit of a wrestle. Not very serious about it. Now, with Ellies like this, when they are play fighting, you often find the bigger individual tries to make itself smaller. It might go down a little bit or whatnot to entice the smaller individual into the game. Oh, looks like it's going to come for a bit of a drink. Oh, look at that beautiful reflections in the water. I think I need to take my camera out before he causes ripples. Gorgeous. It's the slurping sound. And again, I think Buffalo's Hook Waterhole is going to become a really important place for us as we move further into the dry season. that little bit of rain we had filled it up really nicely, so it's going to start becoming a hub for your large mammals like buffalo and elephant. Oh, that was a big drink. An elephant can hold about 8 liters of water in its trunk, which is about 2 gallons. So elephants have this incredible ability to smell water, even if it's underground. And when there's no surface water available, they'll be able to find a spot to dig if the water's close enough to the surface. And that's what Ellen is wondering about. And so most definitely, Ellen, they can. But when that water gets too low to dig to, that's when they move out of the area completely. Three ellie bulls at Buffelshoek Dam. Well, Tamara is wondering, are these ellies a little underweight? She can see their spines. Tamara, I think it's also the angle that they're standing at. They look in perfectly good condition to me. And I think maybe the angle, their face standing on a slope. But you can normally see an elephant's spine just generally, and even when they are in very good condition. So they look quite okay. And thirsty boy. It's amazing when you watch elephants drink, others drink in different ways. I almost think he likes the sound. Whereas a lot of ellies will just put their trunk directly under the water and just slurp it up and you won't hear anything. But you see how he starts on top and it makes that, and then he pops the trunk underneath afterwards. Almost like he enjoys the sound of it because he doesn't actually have to do that. For some reason, when an elephant slurps, it's not as annoying as a human slurping hot coffee or tea. So we saw these bulls hanging their trunks over their tusks earlier, and Megan in Ottawa is wondering, do they do that to rest their trunk or take a break from holding it? And I guess so, Megan. I would say that, and it's just comfortable, probably the same as we would lean with our elbows on a table. I think the same sort of principle. So he's going to move, so I'm going to try and get around to the other side before he disappears like the other two into the bush. We've been seeing so many elephant tracks. It was so wonderful to actually see some elephants instead of their footprints. So we're going to go through a little dip here. Do apologize if we have any breakup. It will be momentarial. It will be very quick and over as we dip through this little low area. Hello, mister. Yes, you're very big. Look at that. There we go. Hanging the trunk over the tusk. Try sidle a little bit closer. Just gonna drift down the hill. Just wanted him to get used to us before we moved, and it looks like he has. Hey, mister. So as it gets drier, there is a chance of more anthrax being around, and Jen Ward was wondering that. Yes, Jen, anthrax is quite a problem during the during droughts in the dry season. Well, when I say quite a problem, it's one of nature's ways of controlling itself. So anthrax is actually quite an important ecological controller of large mammals, and specifically elephants and buffalo. It helps to keep the numbers at a reasonable level. So in places like Botswana, specifically on the Chobe waterfront, probably a couple of thousand animals die of anthrax every year, but it is natural. There we go. Hello, hippopotamot. As my dad used to call them when we were kids, a hippocrocoduck. It looks like a solitary male taking advantage of the water in Buffelshoek. Ah, and another old gentleman. It's all boys at Buffelshoek. It's the Buffelshoek Boys Club, the Sunrise Safari. 3 Ellie bulls, a hippo bull, and now a buffalo bull ambling down. Buffalo would have been resting up on the crest, where it's a bit warmer during the night, and now as the day heats up, coming to chill next to the Buffelshoek Boys Club. Very peaceful scene here at Buffelshoek this morning. The cooing of the Cape turtle dove to be heard in the background. Wonderful. Oh, let's move on, see what else we can find out here in this lovely early winter's morning, or late summer's morning, depending on how you define it. We don't really have the 4 seasons out here. If we had to describe it, we've got hot and wet and dry and cold. Now, Andrea's putting me in a difficult spot. So he says, she knows wild dogs are my favorite, but what is your second favorite animal? Oh, Andrea, that is I think everything else is just second. So, I mean, I love spending time with the big cats, of course. But then again, I love spending time with Ellies. And I think maybe my second favorite animal just depends on what day it is and what mood I'm in. Sometimes I'm really in the mood for Ellies. Sometimes I'm really in the mood for lions or leopards or cheetah. But I can't say for certain which is my second, but I definitely know that wild dogs are by far my first. I think everything else is a very close second, just depending on my mood. we are going to make our way towards Mvubu Road because I have failed to find the one impossible tree species. So I'm going to go to the spot where I know there is one of the second species. And also, you never know, that Tsakani female might still be in that area, so always worth having a good squiz. So while we make our way there, let's jump back on with James.
We have spotted an almost impossible bird to film, as indicated by the fact that you're staring at a wall of green right now. It was a fire finch. And I'm going to show you one. I hoped I'd never caught one on camera. Well, I've never caught anything on camera, but I've never been with a cameraman when he has caught it on camera. And I'm just quickly looking here. We look here. They're these magnificent red birds. And this one, I think, is what we saw. I think we saw the blue-billed or African fired finch. And Lucy, you wanted to see a finch. Well, these are some of the finches we get here. The red-billed firefinch, or the African firefinch, and the Jamisons. That was either a Jamisons or an African. And they're not that common here. You know, in other parts of the Sabi Sands and north into the Timbavati where I've worked, they've been all over the place. But strangely enough, not that common over here. So I hoped to show it to you, but unfortunately, we are going to be unable to do so. Right, well, that is the firefinches. What I will do quickly before we leave here is just play you the call of the firefinch, because they're quite indistinct. And I'm just wanting to remind myself as well, actually. David is peering into the bushes, trying to see if he can see it. Can you see it, David? Nope. Here's the African firefinch's call. That's what we saw. That was exactly the call. You hear that? Not that with that loud whistle is not. That's just in the background. It's that clicking sound. Didn't know he did that. Right, before I totally confused myself. That was the African firefinch, everybody. Which we didn't see. It feels almost like we saw it, but just not quite. Now, I came down here because yesterday evening, when we got wind of the wild dogs, we came speeding through here at 100 miles an hour, and we passed an elephant bull, Bryan and I, with the biggest tusks I've ever seen in this area, and we carried on to the dogs, and I see his tracks here, but I think he's moved on. I was hoping to find him again, but I think it's silly to think that he'd be here for a whole night. He might be lucky. I don't know how to answer the following question. Safari Guide, you say that you recently reviewed the first 3 weeks of my drives. Well, Safari Guide, I'm sorry that you did that to yourself. I imagine they must have been quite difficult to watch. But you say that my accent has changed. Safari Guide, in what way has it changed? You want to know why it's changed? I don't know. I didn't know that it had. I can only think that it's changed slightly in that I've tried to be a little more clear with my words, because it was sometimes a little difficult to hear what I was saying, and that maybe has made me slightly more, it might have made me sound slightly more English, because when I enunciate my words, I tend to sound a little bit more English. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure, Safari Guide. I'll try and find out, actually. I hope I'm not offending anyone with my current accent, whatever it is. Kirsten is offended, but I mean that's not unusual, nor is it important. There is a there is a giraffe. You see her there? A young female giraffe peering at us through the bushes. That's nice to see. You know, we don't see them very often. And Tiffany, you wanted to see some giraffe. Well, we're very lucky. There they are. One cow giraffe. Grazing peacefully into the mid-morning heat. And I remember I said to you at the beginning, I thought that the sky might bleach a bit. You can see behind her there. The sky is not that kind of deep winter blue that we get. It is that sort of bleached blue-white, and I'm not sure why that is the case. There's definitely something in the air. Perhaps a pressure change. Maybe a front is coming in. I don't know. But at the moment, all is peace. Ooh, Brent's got a really interesting bird to show you.
Here we go. We have a preening purple roller. You can hear it, very sort of frog-like little call. Of course, now it stops calling. Rollers like to perch in prominent. Oh, there he's preening now. There's that little call. Rollers are definitely not blessed with the best singing voice, although they're incredibly beautiful birds. So as I was saying, that rollers like to perch in quite prominent spots, and it gives them a great vantage point to see little insects and stuff that they feed on from, and they'll launch themselves from a perch like that onto the ground to catch their prey. Oh, well, very nice little bird. Now we're getting closer and closer to the impossible tree. And I think I'm definitely going to fox everyone this morning with the impossible tree. Now, from what I understand, Mr. Tingana's kill is in a jackalberry tree, and James has already showed you a lovely specimen already this morning. And that is definitely, I think, one of the more prominent and beautiful trees we get here. Now, we only have two types of jackalberries, or Diospirus, which is its scientific name, in southern Africa. And one of the biggest learning curves I've ever been on, especially with trees, and that was when I went up to Gabon, and there were, I think, 22 different species of Diospirus alone in the rainforest area that I was working. Now, they're called jackalberries because the side-striped jackal is very partial to their fruit. Now, the Diospirus species in Gabon, in the rainforest, were also a very popular fruiting tree, but to something a little bit bigger than a side-striped jackal. The great apes were often found around fruiting Diospirus. So chimpanzees, gorillas used to actively, wrong gear, sorry about that, look for fruiting Diospirus. And that was one of the ways we used to track those animals, was to look for different fruiting trees at different times of the year to find out where they were. So we're nearly at that tree, but while we get to that impossible tree, let's go to James, who is the tallest living land mammal.
That's the first time that Brent has ever described me as the tallest living land mammal. That's a small joke. He was, of course, referring to the giraffe. I'm not very tall. And the giraffe is just very peacefully. I mean, the sense of peace around here right now, of kind of the soporific nature of the atmosphere is, well, I mean, it's putting us, Dave and I are both getting quite droopy-eyed. It's just wonderful. And there's a nice link to Brent Leo Smith's last sighting. I can hear a roller in the background. Dave, there, quickly. See the roller there?
Flying.
Yeah,
Yep.
flying. We're just going to try and get the display. That is a lilac-breasted roller, and with any luck, he's going to do his display and show us why he's called a roller now. Or he'll just fly away. There. There we go. Hooray, at least we got a brief view of it. So you saw how he did that kind of acrobatic maneuver, and that's why he's called a roller. Back to the giraffe. Katja, you're interested in why, or if a browser has an equally tough time during the dry season as a grazer. Probably about the same, you know, Katja. It depends on which parts of the trees the giraffe eat. Of course, the leaves on the trees do stay greener for longer, but then, of course, they disappear entirely on many of the trees. So I think you'll find it's probably about the same. Certainly, the animals that eat from the trees are often less water dependent than the grazers. So there's maybe an actually better answer. They probably suffer slightly less. A giraffe and a kudu, specifically, are almost water independent. They almost never have to drink. They will drink if they can, but they almost never have to. They are both browsers, and they pull almost all the moisture they need from the food that they eat. She's just looking at something. I suspect she's looking at the pied, I've completely lost my train of thought. The magpie shrikes that you can hear calling behind us. Okay, I think that's going to be it from us, everybody, before I fall asleep here in the shade. It's just so very pleasant. I think Dave and I will spend the last 5 minutes of the drive underneath this marula tree and just enjoying the calm, quiet atmosphere. We're going to say goodbye to you now. Thank you, David, for your efforts. Well done. Good job. Dave's already asleep. No, he's woken up. There we go. And thanks to Kirsten, especially for taking my jibes. Thank you, Kirsten. And, of course, to, I think it's Louise who's assisting her today. And a big thanks to Brent, who will hand you over to, he is with Big Bryan as well, and they will take you through to the rest of the drive. We'll see you this afternoon. Thank you for all your comments today, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
More tree. So, can you see me behind the impossible tree, or impossible bush? It is busy camouflaging me at the moment, but let's bring it a piece a little bit closer so you can have a good look. Aha! Aha! The impossible tree! There we go. That is the impossible tree. And you can see a compound leaf. No thorns. And the leaf is not soft like toilet paper. So before you guys go off and thinking it is a small weeping wattle to catch you, it is not a weeping wattle. So the leaves aren't soft. They're a bit closer together. There we go. Now I think I've got you guys with the impossible tree. So if you think you know what this tree is, let me know. You can do that on email, questions@wildearth.tv, or you can pop it on Twitter with the hashtag SafariLIVE. But I think this impossible tree is going to continue on to the sunset safari, because I don't think anyone's going to get it this morning, so I'll keep this sample with me. Aha. So, well, it has been a very entertaining morning. Very beautiful. Lady Luga says, is the impossible tree a bush willow? It is not. And while we've got you here, so bush willows do not have compound leaves. So a compound leaf is, let's put it there. So you have lots of little leaflets off a larger stem. That is a compound leaf, and bush willows are not compound, do not have compound leaves. We have a bush willow next to us. So if we have a look at that, and then we look across here, there's a little bush willow growing. You can see it's got big leaves, and they are by no means little leaflets. So there's a bush willow. So definitely not part of the bush willow family. And it's got no thorns, so it's not part of the acacia family. And it's got no spines, so it's not part of the sicklebush family. Now, Margaret and Donna are wondering whether it's a mimosa. That is a really good guess, guys. So they do have the compound leaves, but a mimosa is the new name for an acacia. So if it was, it would have thorns, but this doesn't have any thorns. I can rub it on my face. It's a very good fly swat, though. I will give it that. So someone is, I think it's a jacaranda tree. A jacaranda tree, it is not. It is not an exotic. I'm not tricking you with a species that is originally from South America. It is indigenous to the low veld. Ah, and there's a hint, low veld. And also a reminder, it is Earth Day coming up quite soon on the 22nd of April. So always good to remember that. But I did give you a little hint there. I'm not going to do it again, otherwise it will become, it will just stop being the nearly impossible or impossible tree quiz. It's one, okay. So this is definitely one for the fundis. And fundi is a wonderful Swahili word. I'm not sure how many of you guys know it out there. Fundi means expert. So this is one for the tree fundis. Lots of flies about. Very useful as a fly swat. So it's not any of the thorn trees. As I said, no thorns. I can hold it. But it is sometimes possibly called something that pretends to be a thorn. But it's been wonderful having you guys. So from the killer bees out on the rust bucket, have a splendid rest of your day, and we will see you in a few short hours for the sunset safari, and hopefully cats and nearly impossible trees abound.